All right. Hello. Good evening, everyone. Um, I'm going to go ahead and get started, call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Isla Vista Community Services District. I'd like to announce that this meeting is being recorded. And Jonathan, can you call the roll?
Yes, Director Brandt,
Here.
Dr. Flaherty,
Here.
Director Bertrand,
Yes, here.
Dr. Freeman,
I here.
Dr. Aguilar,
Here.
Dr. Destler.
Here.
All right. Before we begin, we would like to acknowledge the Chumash people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. We pay our respects to the Chumash elders, past, present, and future, who call this place, Aniscoyo, the land that Isla Vista sits upon, their home. We are proud to continue their tradition of coming together and growing as a community. We thank the Chumash community for their stewardship and support, and we look forward to strengthening our ties as we continue our relationship of mutual respect and understanding. With that, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Do any directors have items that they wish to pull? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the consent agenda.
Made by Freeman. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Flaherty. Is there any public comment on the motion? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Flaherty,
Yes.
Bertrand,
Yes.
Freeman,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Destler.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Now we're going to open the public comment period. This is the time for any member of the public to speak on any matter within our subject jurisdiction, but on matters that are not on today's agenda. There will be public comment periods under each item for those specific items, but if you have anything not on the agenda today, now is the time to make your comment. You can hit the raise hand button on Zoom, or you can put something in the chat and we will recognize you. I see a hand from Mark Buktovich. Go ahead, Mark.
Everyone, I wish I could offer a specific recommendation, but basically just in the purview of the IVCSD representing all of Isla Vista and that being the mission that it has, I would hope that there could be some sort of item in a future agenda to address the severe housing shortage that it looks like a lot of UCSB students are going to be facing. I know that there may not be a lot to accomplish, but I hope that that can be formally heard and looked at by the board and as a problem that is facing the community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mark. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on anything that's not on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment period, and we're going to move to our first item. This is the budget hearing to consider fiscal year 2021-2022 district budget, and I'm going to hand it over to staff to introduce this.
Great, thank you. So we've been hard at work creating this budget since March now. So it's been over 4 or 5 months of work that our finance committee has been doing and has been coming to the board for review, and we've approved the preliminary budget in June. So this is the culmination of so many of our agenda items and meetings and all the work we've done in the last 5 months. So it's exciting to get to this point. I'm going to share my screen here. So, we did go over the budget pretty extensively when we went to approve the preliminary budget. So I'll still run over the major highlights here and also the changes, and we can take questions on the budget. But hopefully this budget letter contains all the information that you would need to make a decision. And what our agenda is to do is to approve or amend. So this is the last day to do an amendment to the budget. But this is what the finance committee was came to consensus on. I don't think they didn't take a vote to recommend it, but this is where the finance committee landed, and we haven't received any requests for amendment from the public from when we have put this out noticed since June, but this is the last opportunity today to make a change. So here's the budget. It's where our revenues are continuing to be very strong. Where our revenues right now are at 1.4 million. So it's increased even more since we approved our preliminary budget, and that's just because of us just continuing to get more months of collection that lead to more accurate numbers on what we're projecting for next year. So when we get this year's numbers in the summer, we get better numbers for the future. So 1.4 million, it includes our UCSB funds and our fund balance and the STEP grant. So we have some diverse revenue sources right now, some grants and some tax revenue and some of our own fund balance. And then our expenses are pretty much equal to that. We have a balanced budget. We are utilizing fund balance a little bit, and we'll note that for an investment, but our budget's balanced, and it's continuing to be that community programs is the biggest area of spending at 27%, followed by public safety, public works, and parking, which is the STEP grant, and then housing and community planning each at 1% and 2%. And community engagement, which is part of operations, but is kind of part of all our programs, but it's categorized under operations as 34% of our budget. Just want to note our budget process. We had a pretty inclusive budget process. This time we did better than last year. This is noted here wrong, but it's a typo. But we did better than last year. We got 99 people responding to our budget survey, up from 30 in the previous year, and we had around 20 people attend our town hall, and our interns put together this budget survey report that everybody can check out on what the community was saying was important. And I think, we had the discussion in the finance committee, and one of the things, for example, that was noted was, lots of people submitted that they'd like to see the community looking cleaner. And that was something that was taken, we took action on that with our IV Beautiful new budget. So our budget survey report, it is something that we do look at throughout the entire budget process, our town halls and our survey. So this is just more breaking down of our revenues. If you want to see how each tax breaks down and how much has changed from previous years. And this is just more description of what each of the different residual fund balances. There's different ones. One is for our grants that we're using from UCSB. One is for our compost collective funding that we have. And the other one is from our general fund balance to have a change in director compensation, moving that from 2 days of service a year to a year per month to 3 days of service per month. And then lastly, this charge of services is it's a routine thing we've had in our budget. And then lastly, the STEP grant. And moving on to our expenditures, I'm just going to go over the top line numbers and not go into every detail and just explain when there has been a change. So operations is at 500,000. The only changes here would have been to adjust any salaries for our employees, since those actions were taken after the preliminary budget was approved. So when we made our hires, so that was a change that happened in there. No changes in 2002, none in this one. No changes from, none of these had any other changes. And then we had a change here in 2005 to go from 2 days of service per month from 2, which a day of service can be something like a committee meeting or some other board approved action for a director to take. So that's something we'll have to address that separately too in a policy change as well. So moving on to community programs, here in program 3000 is $397,000 is what we're spending. The biggest, half of that being the community center's budget. No major changes on the community center. I just had to adjust one thing with the salaries and the rent. I had just miscounted things, but it all is fine. But we have funding here for our assistant general manager and programming for the year and marketing for the space is what's all in here. Our special projects unchanged at 60,000. Sexual assault services for the Survivor Resource Center unchanged. Our community garden unchanged. Compost Collective is unchanged, and so is the community festival. All of this is unchanged. Moving on to the rental housing mediation program, it's unchanged at 21,705 for the budget. This is public safeties where we did have one change. The IV safety stations, we had put in a budget for 70,000, and now we moved it to 84,500 to match the third safety station. So 62 full nights of service from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. now next year, and a $1 pay increase. So that's what this new increase here represents. Interpersonal violence investigator stays the same. The parking study is staying the same. STEP grant as well. The next change is the public works. So the full budget here is 134,000. Ivy Beautiful, we had a change. We had budgeted 100,000 for the contractual services, which is our contract with United Way for the crew members and program coordinator, and that we ended up approving that at 122,000 instead of 100,000. So that was the change there, 22,000 increase. Infrastructure zero stayed the same because we would take it out of our reserve that we have for this. Public art staying the same. And finally, community planning is staying the same. That's our expenditures. And just lastly, just to wrap up, is our fund balance. Is just how much money we have in the bank, essentially. We've at the end of, as of now, we have 1.6 million. A lot of it is grants that we need to spend out in this fiscal year, which we're doing. This 112,000 we will spend this year, since it's just been sitting there ready to be spent from last year, essentially, when COVID had a slowdown on things. So we're going to spend those down, and then by the end of this fiscal year, so next June 2022, our grants will be gone. So our fund balance, $1.4 million, almost 1.5 million, will be, in our hands to make those decisions. How we, 892,000 is committed to different items that we've committed to, and the link to see what those are is right there. But then we would have, undesignated reserves around 700,000 at the end of this fiscal year with this budget. And there's no other recommended edits to this budget. So yeah, happy to take any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Do any directors have any questions on the budget? All right, I don't think I'm seeing any questions from the board. Oh, I do see one hand from Director Bertrand. Go ahead.
Thank you. So I'll make some brief comments. First off, just thank you to Jonathan, to Deborah, other members of our team who have worked hard on this. Thanks to all the committee members. It was a pleasure to work with Director Brandt as well as Director Geis while we still had him. For all of the community members who came out to our meetings. This was a really great process, something that we can be proud of. And every time we get to do this each year, I just remind myself and think back to our formation as a district, and when we were talking about the best options for revenue, for how we were going to improve the quality of life in Isla Vista, and when we had that revenue, what we would do with it. And I think we have a lot to be proud of, really concentrating this funding on areas that our community is interested in, on areas where we have a direct improvement. in the quality of life for our residents. So I'm just going to highlight a few things that I think especially stand out in this budget, and I know Director Brandt might have some as well. But first off, the expansion of our Ivy Beautiful program. As Jonathan mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, our residents have mentioned a lot about wanting a cleaner community. And this program not only does that, but it also helps some of our most vulnerable community members and provides them with really life-changing support, skills, and mentorship. Additionally, the expansion of the Ivy Safety Station program this year is really promising. And I know that many of us want to see how we can take that even farther with something like a student neighborhood assistance program in the future. Additionally, we have funding for special projects, which I'm so glad that we continue to keep that in our budget so that as the year goes on, we still have some flexibility to try new things and to provide resources when a need comes up and we want to do something differently. And finally, continuing to invest in the community festival budget. I really think this is going to be the year where we do put that money to good use in changing what our spring festival looks like to create a really positive experience. So I'll stop there, but just want to thank everyone and really excited to see what we can accomplish with these resources.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Are there any other comments from the board? All right, not seeing any. I've got some comments to share, but I'd like to hear from the public first. So I'm going to open up the public comment period. Please hit the raise hand button at the bottom of the screen, or put something in the chat to indicate that you'd like to be called on, and I will call on you. All right, I'm not seeing any hands. Jonathan, are you seeing anything?
No, I'm not seeing anything.
Okay.
Oh, we got one in the chat. It's from Sue.
All right. Go ahead, Sue.
I just want to say that one way to really, if you're looking at beautification, since I don't know if anybody's talking about this, I will throw it in. Undergrounding utilities would really make a major difference, and then people couldn't throw their shoes up on the wires. And I don't know if you, in the beautification project, you probably can't afford the utilities, but I wonder if you might take the shoes down. Just throwing that out there. Thanks.
Thank you for those comments, Sue. And Jonathan, do you want to speak a little bit, or do you have any info you can share about because I know that, I think the way that it works is usually Edison and the state pay for those types of projects with matching from like cities. But can you speak just to the scale of what funding something like that would be like?
Yeah, I mean, undergrounding the utilities would, I think, be millions and millions of dollars out of our budget, and removing the shoes, I think, would be also outside of the skill set and abilities of our beautification crew members. But what we could potentially do is, if people report the shoes as an issue on the C-Click Fix app, we can forward that to Southern California Edison, since they do own those lines, and see if that's something they would do maintenance on, removing the shoes. But so people can always submit that to us on cclickfix.com or on the app, and we will see if we can address it. We don't own the lines, but we can talk to the people who do.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know our board in the past has talked about how incredible it would be if we could underground some utilities in Isla Vista, and I do personally see that as a long-term goal for our community that we're working towards. So thank you for your comments, Sue. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on the budget? All right, I'm not seeing any other requests. So I'm gonna close the public comment period for now and bring it back to the board of directors. Any directors have comments they'd like to share? Well, hearing that, I'll just go ahead and start. I really want to thank our staff for working so hard on putting this together with the Finance Committee. And overall, I really want to thank members of the public. I know we had a very high amount of folks responding to our survey that we did in order to ask folks, what are the issues in Isla Vista? What ideas do you have for solving them? And what do you think our priorities should be? And there was a lot of really good feedback in there. Director Bertrand touched on the beautification element as being one of the really highly desired things that our community had. And I'm really glad that we were able to see a service expansion in that program to do more to make IV a cleaner place. I really want to draw attention to the fact that in this budget, we fund a full-time person for the Isla Vista Community Center. This has been a dream for the community for decades, and we're finally at the point where we are right there, ready and willing to operate community programs in Isla Vista. We had gotten there right before COVID started, but now that we are starting to emerge a bit from the pandemic, we will be prepared and have someone who can be responsible for all of that programming, and additionally allocating $25,000 to pay for the programming itself. And I'm just so looking forward to the day that we can get some of the really popular programs that we had in the community room back up and started again. I know that Zumba and salsa are really the most popular, and I loved seeing folks taking those classes. I also really love seeing the program that we have with UCSB, where UCSB students tutor Isla Vista Elementary School students. I think that that's such an incredible program, and can't wait to see our spaces back and lively again once it's safe and once we can get to that point to be able to do that. So I'm really happy with that. I'll also just add that we'll be soon starting library services in partnership with the city of Goleta, in order for them to be out here a couple of times a week providing books. That's the first time we'll have any library services in Isla Vista. We've got so much looking up for us on the community programs front, and I'm just really happy with where we're headed in that direction. I also really want to call attention to the fact that as we're growing as a district and our services levels are expanding, we are growing sustainably and really making investments in our people in our district through our staff and through increasing our staff to be able to handle what I think is the most important element of our success thus far as a district, which has been engaging the community. And with the community engagement director position that we now have on board, I'm just really excited for all we can do to make sure that the people of Isla Vista are integral to our decision-making process as a board, as well as implementing the policy that we make here on the board. I think that that will just be so important, especially with the many opportunities for public engagement that we have with things such as the STEP grant. This is a really big thing for us to be tackling mobility in Isla Vista. And we have a discussion, I know, later today on the agenda for the parking element of that and starting the conversation there. Having someone that's full-time and dedicated towards doing that community engagement work is just so important. So it may not be something that is maybe super sexy about our budget, bringing on more staff, but it is nonetheless very important. And I'm really glad that we were able to do that. Just again, thank you everyone in the public who is able to participate in this process. We really appreciated your engagement, and it helps us make better decisions up here. So very much appreciated. I think I saw a hand from Director Destler.
I didn't mean to have the last word. I hope this isn't the last word, but I just thought of something that I wanted to say. It's been said many times as we've gone through this budget process, and I think Ethan has mentioned it, maybe you, Spencer and Jonathan, that, a budget really reflects your values. It reflects the vision that you see for the community and what you think is important. And when you look at this budget, it's just really profoundly illustrative of where the district has come from and what the district where it's come from and what it feels is a priority. And it's it's such a thorough, professionally well done, comprehensive budget. And my hat's off to the staff. It is no small thing to do this. To the other board members that have been involved in this process, I'm not a numbers person, and so I'm even more impressed with this, but it's just so well done. And I just really want to commend the other board members that have been involved in this process, Jonathan and Deborah and others who've kind of been in holding hands along the way. Doing this in this virtual environment that we've been in, it's just such a testament to the incredibleness of the staff, the vision of the board, and the commitment to the Isla Vista community. And to that end, I would say I would really love to see a press release done on our budget. And I think it's important because not only is this a statement of values to the Isla Vista community, it's also a huge accomplishment that I think should be celebrated and acknowledged throughout the Santa Barbara County region. As the newest community services district, there's a lot to be proud of here. And I think we all should be tooting our own horn.
We'll get that done. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Director Destler. Any other board members have thoughts they wish to share? All right, I'm not seeing any other thoughts. I will tag on to Kirsten's comment and say I was very happy to see the press release draft commemorating our funding of the Isla Vista Youth Projects and the St. George Youth Center programs for over the summer for our community's youth. So glad to see those press releases coming out. I think that's great. And excited for this one too. If there's no other board comment, or maybe I'll open it up for the public one last time if there's any other comments from members of the public. Not seeing any, I'll bring it back to the board. And if there's no further comments, I think we're ready for a motion. Director Bertrand.
I'll move approval of the fiscal year 2021-22 budget.
Motion has been made by Bertrand. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Destler. All right. Seeing that there's no more comment, let's go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Director Flaherty,
Yes.
Director Bertrand,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
and Director Destler.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone who participated in this process. And again, just such a big thank you to our staff, Jonathan, Deborah, everyone for helping to put this together. Budgets are moral documents. They're a statement of values. And so hats off to Kirsten for mentioning that. Okay, we are now going to move to the next item, which is the request for proposals for the Isla Vista Community Mobility Plan.
Okay, great. This is exciting. Now we're using our budget already. This is our first request for proposals that the IV Community Services District has formally done at this scale. So it's an exciting milestone for us to do something like this. This is a request for proposals to create a community mobility plan for Isla Vista, which is what we got the Sustainable Transportation Equity Program grant to do. So pretty straightforward. This is a very long document, so I'm not gonna go over every bit of it because it is very long. But I think the things I do want to highlight I'm gonna just go over them. So again, this is going to create a community mobility plan for Isla Vista. It's something we don't have right now, and it's something that we would be using a consultant, a technical expert to compose, but something we would be doing the community engagement work to collect the information needed for. So this RFP is not for the entire STEP grant. The entire STEP grant was $182,000, but this RFP is for $74,000 because it's for specifically the parts of the STEP grant which were to develop the technical documents, which were an existing conditions report, a community needs assessment analysis. We would do the engagement to collect the needs, and then they'd analyze it, and then finally the community mobility plan itself with policy recommendations that we would then be able to implement with future grants from the California Air Resources Board. So it's a great system they have set up. So in terms of this RFP, we're going to be publishing it for 1 month. So it is a little short, but we were advised by our partners at the county and UCSB and just others that we've asked in the community who've been publishing RFPs that it should be fine. That 1 month would work out, and we've already gotten some folks who are interested. So it's a 1 month RFP. We are gonna have let me go back down here. We're gonna be asking everybody to submit these by Monday, September 27th, and then we're gonna be we're gonna have our committee score and review them, and then we will then have them interviewed with we would ask them to have a presentation prepared and do a Q&A with our committee, and then we would bring it to the board with a recommendation for which consultant and contract to execute on October 12th board meeting. So that's our timeline. This is our criteria to score them, which is I did add in there's usually like a experience category, and I added in also experience working with Isla Vista or nearby it, at least, into this, just to make sure we've got we give points to people who do have that familiarity with us. Otherwise, we're scoring on pretty standard items: organization, the work plan, and the cost and the work plan are the two highest ways I decided to put the scoring here, because those, it's very important they have a good plan to actually get our work done. And we are only going to be awarding to those who send in at the amount we have, the fixed amount, $74,000. So that's a way to review it. And finally, I want to say this document's very unwieldy, so I'm trying to scroll to the section I want to be showing you. The scope of services. So really just to highlight again what they're gonna be doing. This is our project vision statement. People of all residents and ages and abilities are able to move through, to, and from the community safely using a wide range of accessible and affordable clean mobility options. And all of them should be reliable, efficient, and provide easy access to work, school, and other key destinations in and around Isla Vista. So that's what the plan they're supposed to come up with us is going to help us identify. But these are the deliverables that we'll be receiving. It's one of them is an existing conditions report, which will and they're going to be responsible for proposing some of the data that we'd be gathering, and we are preparing some of it. But this will, I think, be very exciting, and hopefully something that the board gets to review in the next 3 to 4 months, December or January, and it'll be giving us a clear view of what our existing transportation conditions are. And then in the next few months after that, we'll get our needs assessment. So that's the first deliverable. And then the second one here is the draft mobility plan. And then it's adoption. So there's going to be a public process. They'll have a draft, we'll have a public hearing, get community input for our final time, and then at a final hearing, we'll have a final thing. So And then here again, I just pointed it out, the grant's very community engagement heavy. The consultant will not be handling that work. In some grants they do, but in this one, we will be organizing a lot of it or hiring organizations too, and the consultant will, participate, will review the materials, will, be in the conversation, but we will manage that process. Again, this is just the budget again, the existing conditions report and the needs assessment, $53,000 nearly, and then the plan itself for $22,000. And we'll see what they send back in terms of proposals. That's what we budgeted, and that's what we did a year ago. So things, but it's gonna need to be within this total amount. So yeah, and then this is, this is a professional services agreement. This is our standard IVCSD agreement that Ross has made for us that we use. So that's what we'd be using with them. And the attachment after that is the provisions from the state. So yeah, that's this RFP and recommending it for approval, and definitely happy to answer any questions since this is definitely a new thing for us and how we're, something new for us to do. So I'm definitely able to answer any questions about this.
Thank you for the presentation, Jonathan. Any questions from members of the board? Seeing that, I'll ask a question. So you mentioned the review process for the proposals once we receive them. Can you talk a little more in detail about that? I know there's a committee, sort of describe who makes up the committee and how exactly, what their responsibility is in this?
Yeah, great question. So I do, since I'm going to mention the committee, so our committee, they did a huge amount of work to help get this together. So I want to thank Hillary Blackerby at the MTD, who gave me the template, and our friends at the county, Garrett Wong and Ashley Watkins. They provided a lot of input. Same with Lori Goodman at Ivy Youth Projects. So those are the people that comprise our committee. IVCSD representatives, me, Lori Goodman for Ivy Youth Projects, Garrett Wong from the county, and Hillary Blackerby from Santa Barbara MTD. And then we also have one of our community partners as part of the review committee for the RFP. And it's the executive director of SB Bike. Her name's Heather, and I can't get her last name correct. I'm not going to try and get it wrong right now, but the executive director of SB Bike Coalition is also on it, and she's very experienced. She actually did a lot of the work in making this much more clear and easy to understand for consultants. I appreciate her because she is one and she has that background. So we're lucky to have a really robust team of people who've been consultants, people who've reviewed RFPs from the government end, and nonprofit agency, IVYP, who's looking at the equity issue. So that's our committee. We're gonna receive, so the process is gonna go like this. We'll have until September 13th for people to send in questions and for us to make addendums to this, and we'll publish our answered questions that day. Our committee is gonna meet on the 13th, and any questions that we've received from potential applicants, we'll answer them as a group, and then we will publish them. Then September 27th, 2 weeks later, we're going to meet again soon after that, in the next day or two, review the applications, and we're going to score them based on this scoring criteria that I went over. Lost it here. Okay, we're going to score it through this scoreboard, and then we're going to invite a couple for an interview, that our top submissions for an interview, depending on how many we get. But either way, we'd still want to do an interview to make sure that they're engaging and have a friendly demeanor that would fit in Isla Vista. So we would interview them, and then we would make we're going to use an empirical process. We're going to rank them based on how they meet this this scoreboard, and the one with the highest score is the one we'll recommend to the board. And it says, or we can have competitive range, but I think what we've talked about is we want to get to recommending one.
Excellent. Thank you for that explanation of that. It's very helpful. And as a follow-up question to that, we're talking about the timeline of about 1 month when this RFP is floated. What are the methods we're going to use to put it out into the community and make sure that it gets to qualified firms who might want to apply?
Yeah, so what legally we have to do is put it in a newspaper of general circulation. So we're going to do that in the Santa Barbara News Press, which has agreed to do it for us. And we are going to there's an RFP clearinghouse that we've been given, that's the main place to send this to. We're also working with CARB has a technical assistance team at the UC Berkeley Othering and Belonging Institute, whose goal is to help us with the whole execution of this. And one thing we asked them was like, how could we get this out equitably? So the focus is equity a lot in this grant. How do we get it to firms that have experience with equity? And so they said they would help us with the list. And we also have lists of consultants from our partners who will be sharing them with us so that we can just send the blast to them as well. So we're going to use the main clearinghouse. I think it's called the National RFP Clearinghouse. And then some, our people who've been referred to us by our partners, and then people who've been referred to us by CARB, and then the general circulation.
Can I follow up really quickly? Did you say that you're going to put this in the Santa Barbara News Press?
Yeah, we have to put it in a newspaper of general circulation, and it's the one that qualifies for that.
I believe the Independent also qualifies. Is that correct?
Yes, it does. We try to work with both to get it in. It's all, we work with both to get it in.
We work with Santa Barbara News Press. Okay.
I was kind of under the impression that the law was written in a really, really annoying way where you have to use a daily paper. And so that's why everyone uses news press, even though everyone reads the Independent.
That's how we've understood it too.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Any other questions from the board on this? Cool. Well, before I open up public comment, I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Jonathan, and our entire team on the STEP committee, all of our partners. This is a very technical document, and I'm sure required, hundreds of hours to really get it to the form that it's in now. And I just want to say a big thank you for all the work that you put into this, because it's very thorough. It's very professional, and I think it's going to get us a really good result. So thank you for all your work on this. I think I see a hand actually from Director Bertrand, so I'm going to go to him before I go to public comment.
Yes, thank you. Agree with all that you just said. Thanks so much for getting this all together. One question I have is, are we thinking of promoting this with local educational institutions such as at UCSB, whether that's like the Bren School or environmental studies, or even Cal Poly has a lot of programs that are well known for environmental work as well as public engineering. Is that a thought at all?
Yes, we can definitely do that. That's a great idea.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you for that, Director Bertrand. So now I'm going to open up the public comment period. If you have any comments on the request for proposals, please hit the raise hand button or put something in the chat indicating that you'd like to speak, and I will call on you. I see a hand first from Mark Buksevich. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Great work on the document, Jonathan. I just want to suggest the firm, and I'm going to put the name in the chat, Fair and Peers. I'm going to double check that second word there. They're the firm that the Santa Barbara County is using for their active transportation plan. And so they're already doing a lot of the same analysis that would be done by another firm in Isla Vista and also in the greater community. So they might just have like a little bit more knowledge or entrenched knowledge in the community already. And and or have already some of the data that another firm would pull. Obviously, the process should go through the process, and if we found a better or even more equitable firm, that's great. But I want to just suggest them, because as the member representing Isla Vista right now on the community advisory group, I forgot what the last word is, but yeah, I feel like they're really great to work with and are really listening to the needs of the community.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Mark. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment period and bring it back to the board. And do any other directors have any final thoughts on this? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Director Bertrand?
I'll move approval of the RFP for the STEP grant.
Made by Bertrand. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Flaherty. So with that, let's go to a roll call vote.
Dr. Brandt,
Yes.
Dr. Flaherty,
Yes.
Dr. Bertrand,
Yes.
Dr. Aguilar,
Yes.
Dr. Freeman,
Yes.
Dr. Destler.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thanks again for all your work on this, Jonathan, and to all our partners for putting this together. Next, we're going to move to 4.3, the Isla Vista parking study discussion.
Great. So let me get this pulled up. This is just for discussion today. I did put this report together to help spur discussion, but really would love to hear from you all today to know where to go with this and to ask you all to have some ad hoc committee of the board to help make sure we get this right, since this is one of the most important things we've been wanting to do for many years. So we've had, again, just for some background, we've had this in our budget, a parking study since 2018, 2019 fiscal year. And now it's the right time to do it with the STEP grant because we can harmonize both efforts. So we're going to do something very similar, an RFP as well. But for this, we don't have a scope of services yet, which we did for the STEP grant, which was what we had written in our grant that we wanted to do. So here we still need to get a scope of services done. I did put an example of some ideas, but definitely want to hear more from the board on every thought you might have on this that we can take into account to draft something that fits, what you're looking at and what you've heard is an issue that needs to be taken into account in something like this. I tried to be general though in these deliverables, and kind of it's modeled after the STEP grant in a way, but we can have more specifics as well. This is just a first discussion. We have 25,000 for this. It doesn't all have to go to the consultant. Some could be, if we want to go to count the spaces in IV, that could be something we hire people to do, be something we ask a consultant to do. But 25,000 is what we've allocated, and a lot of the engagement side of the work can be done at the same time as a STEP grant work. So we don't have to double pay or double do anything. And then we would hopefully get this done this year, though. We want this to be done before the STEP grant is finished so that it can take it into account. And this is the last part here, is just legal analysis that Ross provided in the past for us, just so that we know what exactly our IVCSD power is and can do. So yeah, just want to hear from you all your ideas on the objectives and deliverables, and budget. Should we all be consultant, not all of it consultant, and yeah, we'll bring something back for the next meeting.
Thank you for the presentation, Jonathan. I see a hand from Director Freeman. Go ahead.
So years ago, back before, as we were working on setting up the district, I had spent a lot of time looking into the work that had been done previously on parking issues, including the parking studies that had been done. And then particularly, I spent a lot of time digging into the Coastal Commission and the not only the challenge to the parking permit program that the county of Santa Barbara put forward for Isla Vista, but as well other related areas, such as somewhere around the Monterey Aquarium. I'm trying to remember if it was Monterey, but I don't think it was. But there was like an area right next to it, and the Coastal Commission had the Coastal Commission said it was very similar to. And there were a few things that I think came out of that that would be useful for when you're putting together this proposal for the parking study. Particularly, a lot of the parking studies that have been done around here, whether formally or informally, end up just trying to look at the amount of parking that is available. But the study that was done that actually caused the Coastal Commission to go, oh, I think this is actually valuable, like you understand the parking problems in your area and you know how to solve them, had done exit interviews of people in cars, trying to figure out exactly why people were parking in certain locations, and then looking at the average amount of time that cars stayed on the street in certain positions. And that was what they were able to then use in order to argue why a specific set of restrictions would affect a particular group of people, such as people who were there to park to either work at or visit the aquarium, but not affect coastal access or affect other groups of the community that people were concerned about. And so to the extent to which I understand correctly that the idea here is to provide feedback on things for requests for proposals for a study, I would like to see if we're going to spend money on a study at all, which I think is a good thing to do, to be clear, if we do it better than all the previous studies and not just do another one of the previous studies that no one ever actually, this never solved our problem, is that if we do it something that is comprehensive and is not just merely quantitative, but has a qualitative component to it, and then looks at quantitative factors that are different than previous studies have, particularly with respect to time of changes during time of day.
Yes, no, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Director Freeman. I will just say I agree with you wholeheartedly that the studies that have been done in the past have been problematic for those reasons, and for reasons that also include not quite accurately counting the amount of availability in spaces. And one thing that I was going to suggest, though I know staff has already incorporated this, but I wanted to highlight, is also the inventory of private parking spaces as well. I think that's really important, not because we necessarily have any policy power over it, but because it feels strange to me to just look at one component of parking, which is on-street parking, when many of our residents sometimes park in a private lot, sometimes park on street, sometimes a little of both. I think that's really important. And I also want to highlight something that I think will be integral to us having a success with a parking study, which is for it to be a collaborative effort between government agencies that we have in Isla Vista to ensure that we have the right folks from the county and from UCSB working together with us, with the consultant, in order to draft something that is inclusive of the entire community, because it's often said that Isla Vista has a parking problem, but Isla Vista as a whole, as a census designated place, including the university and its housing, really is where the problem is. It's a sort of, I don't even want to say region, but it's our mini regions problem that we face. And so I'm really pleased that included in the deliverables is explicit language to study those areas as well. So that I have other thoughts, but I'll also open it up for my colleagues if anyone else has any feedback or questions. All right, not seeing any. I will open it up for the public. Any public comment on the parking study scope of work, please hit the raise hand button or put something in the chat. I see a hand from Mark. Mark, you'll be our first. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, this study like worries me. I don't know like how else to put it. I'm not like necessarily opposed to it per se. Just because it's well, I always see cars as a technology of the past and the present, but not of the future. And also because I always think of Isla Vista as a place where I mean, there's this tweet that circulates in the kind of urbanist communities that's like it says something along the lines of the only reason that people love college is because it's their time to experience a walkable community. I think that's not entirely true, but I think that has a lot of truth to it. And so I don't know. I really hope that this could like examine why people park in Isla Vista to be in the first place, as opposed to like numerical things similar to what Jay was saying. I think like the work of micromobility that MTD is doing, that if it could be done successfully, I'm sure there'd be less people with cars in Isla Vista and there'd be less of a parking jam in Isla Vista. And the other thing too is, I know that like car parking seems like an issue in Isla Vista, and I guess it is. We also have like very little bike parking in Isla Vista. We only have it in the commercial area, and all the rest of the bike parking that exists in Isla Vista is a little bit at the parks and privately owned. It's all private bike parking as opposed to street bike parking. And so that's something I want to mention as well. So I just worry that this is going to be used as a tool to expand more car centrism in the future, when I really hope that Isla Vista can be a community where people can bike and walk and really think about that for themselves in the future. I think that's all my comments on this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mark. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak on this item? All right, not seeing any other hands. Oh, I do see a hand. So Sue Dixon, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Yeah, I apologize for my ignorance of I didn't read what was just presented yet. So is it going to address enforcement as well? It's a question, it's not really a comment.
So in my understanding, part of the deliverables are policy options to meet the parking challenges. And I think that any policy option by definition kind of has to talk about how that enforcement mechanism would be built into it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Sue. I see another hand too from Mark. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Sorry, yeah, there was one more bit. The other thing that I think is underappreciated in Isla Vista parking is how often vehicles get damaged parking in Isla Vista, which is a reason that I also encourage people not to bring cars in Isla Vista. But I think that would also be worth studying and looking at, like how many free and for sale posts are there about people's side mirrors getting taken out by people who are walking by or by cyclists. I don't even know who does it, but it happens often. And I think that should also be something that's examined as well.
Thank you for that, Mark. I think that's a great suggestion. Any other comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for any comments the board has. Director Destler.
Yeah, I wanted to echo something that you said, Spencer, that I think that, when you look at the parking issues in Isla Vista, they're certainly longstanding. They're really complex. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of political complexity, as with all things in Isla Vista. And so I think that the idea of working in collaboration with the university and with the county on this issue helps to bring everyone to the table in a way as to outcomes. And I just think that there's strength in collaboration. Sometimes I'm a little bit Pollyanna on this, but I really believe in working together. I worry about IVCSD going at it alone and being alone. And then sometimes when you're out in front, it's easier to throw stones and sometimes not get done what you want to get done. And so my hope is that there could be kind of more of a joint project work looking at this study, that it's not IVCSD study, that it's an IVCSD county university approach, because I think there's a number of things that are happening on the campus in the next several years that really necessitate a joint conversation with Isla Vista and the university on parking issues.
Thank you for those comments, Kirsten. I completely agree with that assessment of things. Any other comments from board members? Director Freeman.
Yeah, I very much want to underscore what Kirsten was just saying, and there you can kind of expand that to the extent to which anything that we do weren't to be, which I'm not saying anyone was intending to, but if anything we would do weren't to be inclusive of some of the partners that had been working on parking in the past, it is just going to be a complete failure. And it's not just even the university and the county, but the university's got their own transportation related deals with the that include the city of Goleta, and the city of Goleta ends up being somebody who ends up having opinions about how people utilize Isla Vista for parking. And the Surfrider was one of the entities that appealed the parking permit program to the Coastal Commission before, and so you really need to have Surfrider at the table. We actually had, during those meetings I was talking about that I was running years ago, we actually had all these groups, representatives also from the then already sort of closing off Sustainable University Now and the Goleta Grayland Coalition and everything. And I will also just kind of warn that it isn't, this is, I mean, Kirsten said this, but I'm not adding necessarily anything particularly new here, but it's a very complicated problem. The maybe newish comment I'll say is that I'm actually pessimistic that there is a solution that isn't going to make a very large number of people very angry, but it is a problem that is going to get worse, and that is something that needs to be addressed by somebody. And to the extent to which it's going to happen here in Isla Vista, we should have local representation for it, and that's part of the reason why Isla Vista Community Service District has this parking power. And so this is why we're doing all of this. But I just want to make certain that it's appreciated that this is just how complicated this is. I managed to get consensus, even Surfrider finally was like, okay, we will agree to this parking permit program. And then we had forgotten to take into consideration during those meetings the effects on the local houseless community and people specifically who were living in vehicles, and we weren't taking into consideration the undocumented community effects there. And it ended up being an even more complicated problem, and that then ended up kind of collapsing the whole thing to maybe the CSD will be able to solve it. Now we're here 5 years later, and I kind of expect this to be another 5, 10, 10-year process. So.
Yeah, thank you for your comments, Jay. I think they really, really emphasize the importance of equity in any policy decision that is made regarding parking. It is so important that we not just have our key partners of UCSB and the county working collaboratively together with all of us working collaboratively together, but also to be inclusive of communities that often are disproportionately impacted by government decisions like this, disproportionately impacted by enforcement of small violations And I know that that's something as a policymaker is really important to me. The one thing that I will add on the study side of things rather than the policy side of things is I think we've got some tools in the toolbox that we haven't used yet that we are now considering using with the qualitative survey component of this. And I think that that could prove to really bring us additional information that will serve us well in implementing or designing a program. And I know when I first came to Isla Vista in 2015, one of the first meetings that I attended organizing to create this district and to solve problems in Isla Vista was a meeting about parking, where the community spoke about how the desire for a qualitative, in addition to the quantitative study of parking in Isla Vista was so crucial to solving the problem. So I'm really happy that we are here now in 2021 considering this. I think it was a big, really a big key component of why the voters approved the formation of this community services district in 2016. And I'm won't say that I'm optimistic, won't say that I'm pessimistic, but I will say I'm ready, and I'm ready for us to work together to make some progress on this. Do any other board members have comments? All right, seeing none then, I think we're ready for a motion.
We will discuss scope and give direction to staff. Is there a motion that is being expected?
Yeah, I think if you wanted to have a motion for the committee, if you wanted to select anybody to work with me to put something together, whoever's interested.
Any volunteers among the board for this ad hoc committee? Marcos, I see a hand from you. I see a hand from Jay. Excellent. Any other volunteers?
How many people do you want?
I think
we can have 3. We can have up to 3.
Oh, I hate to volunteer myself. I'm so unreliable.
This is a project, so at least it's more time.
Say that again?
It's a 3-week gap between our next meeting instead of 2, so it'll maybe be easier to contribute.
So it's only going to be 3 weeks of my time? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, I know that's not true. 3 times 5. Yeah, just I would, if it's okay, if people would like me to do that, I would love to do that. Awesome.
Excellent. So it looks like we've got our committee of 3, Director Aguilar, Director Freeman, and Director Destler. Does anyone want to make a motion to appoint them to this ad hoc committee?
I'll move to appoint Director Destler, Aguilar, and Freeman to serve on an ad hoc committee to develop recommendations regarding a parking study.
All right, there's a motion by Director Bertrand. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Flaherty. Any further public comment on the motion? Any other?
Is there any issue with us voting on it?
No.
Okay.
All right, so I'll bring it back to the board and we'll go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt,
Yes.
Director Flaherty,
Yes.
Director Bertrand,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Director Destler.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you to Directors Aguilar, Destler, and Freeman for volunteering, and thank you to our staff for bringing this forward. We look forward to further recommendations. Okay, Moving on in the agenda, our next item is the 2021-2022 Community Festival.
Great. I prepared a similar report on this one because main thing we need today again is direction, but just gave you some summary of where we've been historically and also more recently in our conversations, and also our budget wise. We've got 55,000 in festivals, 60,000 in projects, but that's for for potentially the spring and the fall. It's for both 110,000. And one idea I put out here is we could have an RFP for an event planner for Halloween to test the qualifications for a spring festival. But something to note in here is that Lucidity, who we have worked with in the past, but not necessarily we have to again, but who we've worked with in the past, is not able to do Halloween, anything for this Halloween this year to produce an event. But I want to maybe turn it over to our board members who were there at our meeting with Dean of Students, Katya Armistead, to talk about programming. If you all want to share some of the program ideas we talked about, but yeah, but that's we're kind of trying to figure out right now, where would we go if we did a program in the fall? How would we want to do it, in-house, or do we want to try to hire a group? So there, time is running out, so we're just trying to get the board feeling on what our priorities are. What's our goal? What's our goal for this community programming this Halloween? How should we go about it? And the budget, what you're thinking budget-wise.
Thank you for that, Jonathan. Catherine or Ethan, do you want to speak a little bit about our recent meeting with the Dean of Students?
Yes, so we met with Katya, was that last week, to discuss Halloween. We talked about a lot of stuff, and we only had half an hour to meet, so there's definitely more conversations to be had. But we spoke about how different entities who will usually put on stuff, like AS, they're mainly focused right now on their back to school events right now. So I don't know how much preparation has happened regarding Halloween yet. And then we also spoke about how a lot of people are a bit burnt out from virtual events. But it is hard, and so we would love to have an in-person event, but with the evolving COVID situation, it makes it really hard or it's difficult knowing if we want to commit fully to an in-person event, knowing how some things can change so quickly. And then there's also an issue, or they've run into some stuff about security also. So one of our main roles would be hiring security if we choose to do this. I don't know if Ethan, you want to elaborate more on that, but there's some rules on if they can only hire who they already have. And so that could be a role that we take on if we choose to do an in-person event.
Yes, I think that's a great summary of a lot of the discussion. I think our overall goal is to have a Halloween festival / Halloween carnival type of event during critical hours where people in Isla Vista want to be out having fun, and we want to provide them a safe activity to do so. And some of the things that I think we threw around on what such an event could look like include music, photo ops, perhaps pumpkin patches, different things that are within the theme of the event that would be eye-catching, that people would want to go towards. And ultimately, our number one goal here is safety. And if this means diverting activities from, say, Del Playa Drive, where people are just walking around looking for things to do, and actually channeling that towards something that's organized, fun, engaging, and safe, that's really our goal. And I think, as Jonathan mentioned before, we do have a tight timeline. but by contracting with a community partner to help put this on, a group that's skilled with this, I think this really could be something special and something that we could do in collaboration with a number of partners. And in addition to keeping our community safe, one thing that I think a number of us mentioned the last time we had Halloween on our agenda is just wanting to continue to make progress towards Halloween being a weekend that our community takes ownership over. That is a positive experience and something that we can all be proud of. So I'll turn it back to you, Spencer.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Catherine and Ethan. I think that's a great summary of our conversations and kind of lays out sort of the options that we have moving forward. I think there's a lot of room for collaboration with UCSB, with UCSB associated students, and with external partners as well to make this a safe event with security, but also with fun, enticing things to do. And I think that depending on what the restrictions are on campus for what program board and just UCSB in general is able to do, this event could end up being extremely crucial in order to fulfill that goal that you spoke about, Ethan, of trying to give people something fun to do in the nighttime hours. That has historically been the most crucial thing to ensuring that we have a safe Halloween weekend in Isla Vista. So I think we're looking for input from the board on moving forward, and would open it up to any questions or comments from directors.
I have some questions.
Go ahead, Director Destler.
So are you saying that you met with Katja Armistead and that her idea is that IVCSD would hire, would provide, for whatever event, would provide security? Is that what you said? So IVCSD would be responsible for that?
Yes, so that's a component of it, and the thinking behind that is new rules about what university entities can contract out.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So we identified that as a role that we could help fulfill. I think we're also, the conversations about planning and execution of the event itself also need to be more fully developed, and groups like AS Program Board are very busy right now working on their back to school concerts. So those conversations need to develop a little bit more. But also I think that there's a lot that we can help with if we were to go down the route of something that's sort of more carnival oriented.
And then I wanted to ask a question if there'd been any conversations with the IVRPD.
Jonathan, do you want to speak to any of that?
Not on Halloween specifically, no, not yet.
I see a hand from Director Bertrand.
Yes, thank you. One more thing that I forgot to mention was, as part of our discussion, a number of us brought up that we have the concept that was presented to us in this past spring around time of Deltopia for having an open streets type of event involving local businesses. And that was a really cool concept that a number of us were really excited about. But at the time, our COVID situation was just so precarious. During those days, I think young people were just on the cusp of being eligible to receive vaccines. We were seeing a lot of different things than we're seeing now. Obviously, we're in a precarious COVID situation right now, but we know that when we're outdoors and with a high vaccination rate in our community, it's a little bit different. That being said, the concept that was introduced back in the spring, elements of that we may want to use for this. Now that we know that it's a little bit safer to have an outdoor event. And I think that a lot of what was proposed back then, our community would be excited about and would take advantage of. One more thing I want to mention is in the past, our district, along with and in partnership with Ivy Youth Projects, St. George Youth Center, and IVRPD, has played an active role in the Haunt the Loop event with the EVPLA's office as well, where we help organize a trick-or-treat event for kids around the loop. And I think that would be something great for us to do again this year.
Those comments, Director Bertrand, I think those are great ideas. Do any directors have any other questions or comments?
I just have one more comment. I noticed, and I just wonder if there's value in bringing, oh, I hope you can hear me. My internet is unstable.
Director Destler, I cut out at the beginning if you want to start from the beginning again.
Okay. Yeah, my internet decided to go. My kids are probably playing Fortnite. I think that's probably it. Okay, train of thought. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot what I was going to say. I'll think of it in a minute. Oh, I remember. Okay, COVID. Yeah, we used to have COVID updates, and I just wonder if there's value in having some type of COVID update just to think about or to help inform the planning for an event. I know a number of us participate or listen to the county public health reports, but I do think there's probably value in consultation with CDPH as part of the planning of any type of event.
Yeah, thank you for that, Director Deschler. I think that's a good idea moving forward as we are seeing case numbers increase in our county. And while we're on the subject, I wanted to highlight and say a big thank you to educational institutions in our community, including UCSB and Santa Barbara City College, for adopting mandates for vaccinations. I know we heard recently that at UC Santa Barbara right now, the compliance rate is at 90%, which is an incredible number. And I know that there are many more students that are partially vaccinated or have appointments made to receive their full vaccination. And it definitely makes me feel much safer in our community and much safer as we move forward into the fall in general. So with that, I think what I'll do is I'll open up public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on a community festival? I see a hand from Mark. Quick with the button as always. Go ahead, Mark.
Thanks, Spencer. Yeah, I just want to voice my support for this. I think this is going to be really, really great. And I want to emphasize how fun I think this event should be. And the reason I want to emphasize fun over safety is because I think damn near most of what the IVCSD can do is going to be safer than a frat party or people partying inside a Del Playa house. So if you make something that's going to be like really fun, I think it's going to attract a lot of people. I know that I would love to see like a costume contest or even like, oh my God, like I have no idea if there's a budget for this, but if we could get like a legit haunted house, you know, or something like that, that'd be really, really cool. Yeah, I think this could be a really, really cool event. And like I said, if it's fun, if it also brings people outdoors in terms of transmission rates, as opposed to being in an indoor house party, it's going to be safer on so many levels. And I think it's going to really be a really great moment to bring the community together and also bring like Halloween kind of back in Isla Vista in a way that has been missing for a really, really long time. So I can't emphasize how supportive I am of this enough. And I look forward to some good creative ideas and some pumpkin carving and some whatever it takes to get people out and doing some fun things. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mark. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? I see one hand from Sue, but I think that might just be left over from the last item. Excellent, and I'm not seeing any other comments in the chat. So I'll bring it back to the board. Any other comments about moving forward with discussions with our partners on this? Director Flaherty.
I would like to thank Mark for the great idea of a haunted house. That really excited me. I agree with him, and I do think that this should be really a fun event. I've never experienced a true Halloween in Isla Vista because the first 2 years, there's always such a, it's so heavily policed that you're told just not to leave and not to go anywhere. And then junior year, we were in a pandemic. We're still in it, but things are getting better. And especially with the vaccination requirement, that makes me feel a lot more comfortable having outdoor things, especially as well. And I definitely think that elements from the Taste of IV that was proposed, I think they would still work really great with what we're trying to do with Halloween here and bringing people out, supporting our local businesses. I think shutting down Pardal could be a really great way to have some open seating and people being outside as opposed to being indoors. So I personally am really excited at the thought of having a Halloween, especially one that's outdoors. And I agree that having an element for children too, so trick-or-treating, I would love to have that as well so that we can involve local families as well. I think that would be really important. I don't know where in the day that would fit in with that, but I would love to support that as well.
Thank you for those comments, Director Flaherty. Director Bertrand.
Definitely agree with everything Director Flaherty said. And one thing I'll just emphasize is I think when going about this, just the actual time that we'll have the activities is going to be crucial. I know that UCSB concert activities usually happen later in the evening. So perhaps this happens a little bit before then, but also I don't think this will be so much of a daytime event just because we do want to cut into the time where people really need fun things to do. And totally agree with Mark's comment just about the emphasis of this is about having fun and being putting on something that our community will really appreciate. And then one question I have for Jonathan or for a board member who remembers is back when we had the Taste of IV proposal around the time of Deltopia, what did the actual proposed execution of that event look like as far as who was setting up and staffing the event?
Yeah, AS was going to handle a lot of that, the vast majority of the volunteers and the tickets, and Lucidity was going to then do all the actual setup of the tables, and AS was handling all the restaurant, being a liaison to all the restaurants. So I think our piece was reserving Pardal and trying to get everyone together. But yeah, AS was a major player in making that happen. And, they were kind of doing that. I don't think it was instead of their concert, but it was in addition to the concert the same day. So program board was going to be a funder, and AS staff was going to do a lot of the work.
Got it. Thanks for reminding us of that. And while the partners, we may have some of the same partners this time, some may be different. It's helpful to just remember what the roles that we would need to fill for something like this are. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Bertrand. Any other comments from board members? All right, seeing none, I think we're ready for direction. And I'm thinking the elements of staff direction will be to continue working with our community partners to develop a plan to execute a community festival, carnival, whatever we're calling it, and report back to the board on progress. Anyone want to make that motion?
So moved. If we could also add to that and to direct directors Brandt, Flaherty, and Bertrand to serve on an ad hoc committee. I think that would be helpful too. And I put our names out there just because we started this, but also I'm flexible if someone else really wants to be in on this. I'm flexible with my membership, though I do like this.
Excellent. I think that motion is well taken. Let's get a second for it first. Does anyone have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by destler. I feel the same way as Director Bertrand. If there's other directors that would also want to be involved in this, happy to have you join, but also happy to continue serving on an ad hoc. Any directors have input? All right, not seeing any then. I think we've got our motion on the table. Jonathan, can you read it back to us?
Yeah, let's make sure we got it right. Here's the motion.
Motion to continue working with community partners to develop a plan for a community festival during Halloween 2021 and appoint directors Bertrand, Brandt, and Flaherty to an ad hoc committee to work on the project. All right. So seeing that, we have a motion and a second. I think it's time to go to a roll call vote.
Director Brandt?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Bertrand?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Freeman?
Yes.
Destler?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. All right, thanks everyone. We'll be looking forward to presenting more info soon. And now we're going to move to the last item on our regular agenda. This is consideration of a support position for Assembly Bill 122.
Great. So Director Freeman had asked that we agendize this. I think it was a public request that we consider a support position on this legislation, and it did seem like it fit within our policy. Is not taking a stance myself, but just saying it did fit within our policy of something we can take a stance on, especially as it relates to our upcoming work on the STEP grant.
Oh, you said that it did, not that it did not.
Yeah, it does. I think it does. Yeah.
Excellent. Director Freeman, you have any comments you'd like to make in opening this up?
So one of the things that I find really frustrating about law sometimes is that we will have laws on the books that effectively nobody is actually honoring, and then we have a law enforcement that is then in a position where they kind of appreciate that no one really honors that law, but they technically can use it against people. And so the fact that we have a community where virtually nobody stops at a stop sign when they're on a bike is extremely frustrating to me. It's extremely frustrating to me, given the fact that I'm one of the supporters that we don't need to stop the stop sign on a bike, and that it's actually safer to not stop the stop sign on the bike. I mean, I think the first part of what I was saying, I think, was hopefully making sense, and then I kind of messed it up at the end. But the reason why I find it frustrating is having this law on the books that is just joint with what everyone's actually doing, which might even be better anyway. On this as aspect of it might even be better. There's been a bunch of discussion you can find if you search for the Idaho stop or the rolling stop that this is actually safer for bicyclists for a couple of reasons. One of which is that it causes them to be more willing to utilize some of these slower speed streets as opposed to moving to faster streets that have fewer stop signs because it uses less energy. Additionally, the process of starting and stopping on a bike is confusing for other road participants sometimes, because, and it's especially so when you don't know whether the person believes in the law or not. And so it actually kind of increases this level of constant questioning of, for example, the cars of like, oh, is this person going to go or not? And you end up with these standoffs and things. It's not good for anybody. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for that introduction of the bill, Director Freeman. Any questions or comments from board members? All right, not seeing any. I'll open up public comment. Any comments from members of the public on support for AB 122? I see a hand from Sue Dixon, and then to be followed by Mark Dukevich. Go ahead, Sue.
I just have a question. What is this AB 122? I mean, what does it actually say?
So the title of the bill is Vehicles Required Stops Bicycles, and the purpose of the bill is to legalize the ability for a bicycle to not have to stop at a stop sign, as is already kind of common practice, sometimes referred to as the Idaho stop.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your question, Sue. Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, and I'll even elaborate. It does not need to stop, but needs to yield. That's what's required. So a bicycle needs to yield as opposed to do a full stop. Yeah, I think Jay actually kind of said everything I wanted to say, but I just wanted to voice my support for this. I'm part of an organization that's tracking all legislation and the state legislature regarding public transit, transportation, walkability, bikeability, and this is a really, really big one. It is, it is right before the whole floor of the state Senate right now. And once the state Senate can vote on it, it will go to Governor Newsom's desk. And so, yeah, any little push to get this over the edge will make cycling safer for everyone in California, not just Isla Vista. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mark. Are there any other comments from members of the public? All right, not seeing any, I will bring it back to the board. And I'll just briefly say a few words of support for us sending a letter endorsing this legislation. I think once we will find out through the STEP grant process, but I would venture to say we probably have more bicycler commuters in Isla Vista than anywhere on the entire Central Coast, maybe anywhere in all of Southern California. And so I think our voice on this legislation is important, and it's very pertinent. This is very important towards helping provide clarity for bicyclists on what the laws are, and as well as making it a safer, just more bikeable place in Isla Vista. One last thing I'll mention is that although the current laws are not enforced in our community or really very much of anywhere in the state of California, I will mention that I think there's a real big equity element to this as well, because we know that Black and brown folks are most likely to be stopped when it comes to vehicle or bicycle enforcement when that does occur. So I think that supporting this legislation is really important for that reason as well. Any other comments from board members? Director Aguilar.
I guess I have a question more so on our agenda. It says board will consider a support position. Does that mean that we would authorize a letter or draft a letter, or what would our statement end up being from this vote?
Yeah, usually what organizations who endorse legislation do is just send a letter to the author saying we endorse this, and then it'll be listed on the bill analysis. That's it.
Thank you.
Great question, Marcos. Any other questions or comments from board members? All right, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I will make that motion. I'm realizing I need to put the agenda. I move that we send a letter of support for AB 122.
Cool. All right, made by Freeman. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Aguilar. Any further public comment on this item? Any other board comment? All right, let's go to a roll call vote.
Director Brent,
Yes.
Director Flaherty,
Yes.
Director Bertrand,
Yes.
Director Aguilar,
Yes.
Director Freeman,
Yes.
Dr. Destler.
Yes.
All right, motion passes unanimously. Thanks everyone, and thank you to members of the public and to Director Freeman for bringing this to the board for our support. We're going to move to reports. We'll start with reports from members of the board. Do any board members have reports they'd like to give? Director Destler.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I'm sure that people have heard that there's significant issues involving housing for UCSB students. And we believe there's a myriad of reasons for these housing issues. Some of the issues have to do with the Santa Barbara area tight rental market that affects all people in this area. Another has to do with we're learning that the Isla Vista community is not having as dense living situation in terms of rentals are instead of having 4 people to a room or having 2 people to a room or 1 person to a room. So we're hearing that there's not as much people in a unit. And the other thing that we've heard a little bit is that some students thought that we would be remote at this time. And so some students perhaps didn't start looking for housing until late. And so again, it's a myriad of factors. So what is UCSB doing about that? We have set up the campus leadership has set up a housing task force, and we're looking at a lot of different options for this approximately 900 students. We're on a waiting list. We've made we've found space for about 250 of those students. However, more students are being added to the list or adding themselves to the list. This may be because some students are looking for better opportunities that they have right now. So we're looking at a number of issues. There was some folks that had said that that there were not going to be triples at UCSB, and I just want to make sure that people know that that is not correct. That in fact the campus is tripling a lot of rooms, almost all rooms, not all, but many rooms will be tripled. We've spoken to the county public health about this. We've gotten their approval. So the problem is not that we are housing less students. And in fact, the campus is housing more students than ever before on campus. So I just wanted to pass that along, mainly because I think it's important to get good information and accurate information to the community and let people know that, you know, there's a number of issues that have really compounded the housing difficulty this year. And there are a lot of very committed people at the university who are looking at a number of options. So I just want to pass that along.
Thank you for that report, Director Destler. Any other reports from members of the board? All right, seeing none. We will move to reports from standing and ad hoc committees. I don't think, well, we had our finance committee report in the form of the budget, and I don't know if there have been any other standing committee meetings. So I think we'll move to report from district council. Great to see you, Ross. Oh, wait, sorry, I see a hand from Director Aguilar. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to just lead off the report from the nightlife and programming group. So we haven't really had a official meeting with IVRPD or with other community partners in a long time. But Catherine, Ethan, and myself met this past weekend and discussed how we would be prepared for fall and the return of students and what we're trying to prioritize, like what we're going to do in the coming months. And so we've noticed that IVRPD has some really great outdoor programming going on with their movie series in the parks. And then they're also going to have a concert series coming soon. And so we're happy to see them delivering on a few of those goals, even though we haven't necessarily been in concert with each other. And so we kind of look to how we can target our specific audiences and specific groups that IVCSD has an advantage of reaching, like the university and more of our college age residents. So we made a little to-do list of things for the three of us. I'll let Ethan and Catherine speak to anything else they want to share.
Totally. And a few of like what Marcos mentioned as far as things that are kind of specific to the IVCSD. At our first meeting, one of the great ideas that we heard from a community partner was, well, we know that we want to have programs in the community, but it's so confusing about how to get things done. So us working on kind of a roadmap for how community members, community organizations can put on an event in Isla Vista. Additionally, working to tie in our different safety services that we're providing to kind of the vision of nightlife in IV, and also looking at some of the infrastructure needs for a weekend night, as well as the festival programming, like what we discussed earlier. But we also spoke about just kind of what some of our next outreach might look like, including going out to meet community members at night while they're going around the neighborhood, and trying to engage with folks through tabling to really identify what community members want to see on Friday, Saturday nights, and other evenings as well. And I'll turn it over to Catherine too to talk about anything that she has, but also our targeted outreach to like specific stakeholder groups.
Yeah, so we'd love to continue some targeted outreach. So I'm personally going to be reaching out to members of Greek Life. There's a lot of philanthropy events that they hold, and a lot of events at local businesses that they usually hold. And now that things are in person, that will likely be starting back up again. And then we've also been discussing a community calendar as well, that we would love to develop, that people can submit to and that people can refer to, especially for freshmen and first years and second years who maybe haven't experienced Isla Vista, and know that there is programming available other than just walking around trying to see if you can get into somewhere, some house. And so that is also a goal that we have, is to make that available to people as well and kind of phase things into that, in addition to the outreach that we're going to be doing.
And all of this is just a preview. We're going to ask staff to place this on the agenda for next meeting so that we can have a discussion and come with some specific outcomes as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Directors Aguilar, Flaherty, and Bertrand for that report. Very thorough, and looking forward to the item coming before us soon. Okay, so now I will move to 5.3, report from District Council.
Thank you, President Brandt. Just two quick items for the board. We obviously continue to watch the Delta variant and how it's impacting public agencies and meeting in person, or having a hybrid model, or returning or staying remote. As I've reported previously a number of times, the Governor's Executive Order N-8-21 extended the duration of the prior executive order, which relaxed the Brown Act requirements for remote participation and observation by both the public and by members of the board of each legislative agency. That was extended through the end of September, which was in line with what we had anticipated, to give public agencies enough time to be able to reopen safely to accommodate members of the public and to accommodate the members, their elected and appointed officials. Obviously, Delta's kind of thrown all of that up in the air. And so we're waiting now to see if the governor is going to issue a further extension of that deadline. If the numbers keep tracking in a way that is negative, then that's what we'd anticipate would happen based on what he's done in the past. No real sense of whether it's going to be 1 month, 2 months, or through the end of the year. Also, the governor's got other things on his mind right now that may be preoccupying him. So we're watching that, and my personal involvement, my clients in the area for the most part are staying remote. I know that IVCSD did a little experiment with a hybrid model last time, and I always see everybody back on remote in the meantime. So it's there to use through the end of September. And while I am anxious to see all of my clients in person, obviously everyone's health, welfare, and safety are paramount. So I'm adjusting my travel plans for in-person participation to be consistent with the policy positions of my various boards and clients. I'm keeping in close contact with Jonathan as far as that's concerned. The second item is less directly impactful for the district and more of just a kind of a general point. My firm has, for the past year, been putting together and has formed a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. I'm on that committee. And two of our partners are going to be presenting a paper to the League of California Cities that talks about diversity, equity, inclusion in the public, municipal, and public agency space, both as lawyers who support that sector, but also people who work in that sector. So city managers and finance directors, as well as elected officials. It's been eye-opening to be a part of that committee. I've certainly learned a lot and taken to heart all of the things I've learned from my fellow committee members, but it's illustrative of the commitment that Alisher and Winder has to supporting the diverse communities that our clients serve, and to make sure that we're upholding the values as they're expressed by the elected appointed officials that make up the boards of those clients. So just thought I'd share that, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you for both those updates, and thank you for your service on that committee. Next, we'll go to a report from General Manager.
Great. Just some couple updates on our services. The Compost Collective has been fully operating today, and we had a great meeting with the St. Mike's Church about partnering more to operate their pile and expanding it. So Compost Collective is moving along strongly. I mentioned this in my email to you all, but I'm meeting with the IV Beautiful administration tomorrow to work out on how to move forward with that program now. Safety stations, they start on Friday. And so that's exciting. We start on Little Acorn Park on Friday. And then in a month after that is when we plan to get to the other two locations. Rental housing, mediation. We've had some issues come in recently, but we're looking to make it a big part of the push during move-in to promote that program. Next up is, we're still working with the county and the library while we don't have a lease at the community center to get them to start the library services out there. So that's something still in the works, just made some progress today, but hopefully that could launch soon. And we're in the middle of the process still to hire the assistant general manager for that community center operation. So things are in progress there. STEP grant has taken up a huge amount of time, more than I planned for originally, but it's good. It's building capacity, and we're learning a lot. And yeah, we're gonna have our RFP out, and we're now gonna start drafting our engagement plan. So this is moving full ahead, and we'll start seeing more things in the public regarding this soon. LAFCO MSR, I had reported before that it was done, but we're still working out some details with LAFCO to get this complete based on what we had voted to submit a few months ago. So I will let you know when it's fully done, but we're still in the process of making sure that the MSRs are accurate representation of the IVCSD as it is today in 2021, August. Next up is some community engagement. Sydney has been really hard at work looking to do a lot of engagement around the move-in period. So it's a big opportunity. And also getting our website updated, which I know has been a big board goal for a while. So we're going to do the wholesale update on that is in the works. I know that's been a priority. And Spencer and I had a chance to meet the new general manager at the food co-op. So that was good because they've been a partner of ours in the past. Public Record Act request update as per our policy. We've had 2 since our last board meeting, and they were from the same person regarding our new employee contracts. We're still hoping to get our credit card so that we can make our big purchases as a district soon. But we're gonna maybe need to do some faster than others because that's not taking, like, our technology issues as for our staff is growing and our staff is growing. So we might need to take action on that earlier than other things. And I'll get something to the board in terms of approving expenditure if it meets that limit at the next meeting. And lastly, again, reminder, ethics and workplace harassment training certificates. If you haven't sent it to me, please send it to me. If you haven't done it, please do it and send it to me. If you need help, contact me.
Thank you for the report, Jonathan. Any questions from members of the board? I see a hand from Director Freeman. Go ahead.
Did I hear correctly that the board, it's not the board, sorry. Did I hear correctly that you, Jonathan, don't yet have a district credit card?
No, we're
what
still
happened?
waiting.
Are you
I don't know what
tell us
happened.
what happened? I just thought that got finalized a long time ago.
Someone in Minnesota has our application. And I've been trying to reach out to get an update, and I haven't heard an update, but our application is complete. I've confirmed that at least, but it's just in the process, whatever that means.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, I will follow up on that because I was horrified when I heard that Jonathan doesn't have, not Jonathan, the district doesn't have a credit card. And he walked me through all the reasons why. And I think with Jonathan, we had a discussion about maybe looking at local options with local banks, but my golly, it's such a barrier to being able to provide the type of resources that the staff need to do their jobs. It's kind of important.
Yes, no, I've made a commitment that at least we'll get the technology done and we'll figure that out. And the furniture is more expensive and bigger to purchase, and we can wait on that until the credit card comes. So it's we'll get done with this soon. We won't ever have to have this conversation again, hopefully soon. We've done our part. We've submitted our paperwork.
All right, well, looking forward to that day. Hopefully it comes sooner rather than later. Any other questions or comments from board members?
Oh, I'll say something. Spencer, I appreciate you making the call to be remote for this meeting. I think you made that call and I appreciate it. So just wanted to thank you.
Absolutely. I hope we can get back to being in person and hybrid soon, but with the conditions of safety of indoor activities right now, I think we're all very used to Zoom. So we'll do that and hopefully wait for additional guidance from the state or conditions to improve. Okay, moving to our last item, future meeting dates and agenda items. So for future agenda items, I wanted to follow up on something that Director Destler mentioned in her report and that I think a member of the public mentioned as well, which is the housing situation that our residents face right now. I've just been so heartbroken over the past 3 weeks, hearing from residents scrambling to try and find housing, many trying to figure out places to rent as far as Ventura and Oxnard or Santa Maria. And it really just has struck me, not to editorialize too much, but I think a lot of the policies that we have broadly pursued as a state and as a society, we're paying the price for it now. And, I wonder if there's a way for us to try and maybe somewhat similarly to what we do with parking, where we do an assessment of the community's needs, to do something on the housing front as well. Because I think in many ways the two kind of go hand in hand, although you don't necessarily need parking to have a house. But it is the most crucial thing that our residents need to survive. Shelter is essential. It's essential to life. So I know that we have a line item specifically for planning, and I'd be interested in us bringing back an agenda item for some sort of a housing needs assessment in the future to utilize some of that programmatic funding. Any other future agenda items from the board? I know we heard that we will have the nightlife working groups update, which I'm looking forward to. Anything else that you want to share, Jonathan, for future agenda items?
Yeah, some future agenda items that we've got. We'll have something back on the festival, on the parking study. Those are, coming back. And we're going to have something come back soon on the contract with St. Mike's. And I mentioned this in my email to you all. We'll have a report on the GAN limit soon, and a resolution, not like the definition word resolution, like a formal resolution from our board regarding that. So I've been working with Ross and Spencer on that. So those are a couple things coming up on our agenda.
All right, thank you for that update, Jonathan. So our next meeting will take place on September 14th here on Zoom at 6 p.m. And can I get a motion to adjourn?
I will move to adjourn.
Made by Freeman, seconded by destler. Further public comment? Any other board discussion? All right, we'll do roll call vote.
Director Brandt?
Yes.
Director Freeman?
Yes.
Director Flaherty?
Yes.
Director Bertrand?
Yes.
Director Aguilar?
Yes.
Director Destler?
Yes.
All right, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in September.